Thank you very much, Chris, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the public, staff and council. Another beautiful day in Wasaga Beach. We'll start this meeting by calling it to order, and I'll turn it over to Councillor DeLeo for our land acknowledgement. Councillor DeLeo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We begin our meeting by recognizing the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples of Canada as traditional stewards and caretakers of the land. We acknowledge that the town of Wasaga Beach is located within the boundaries of Treaty 18, the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Tionontadi, Wendat, and is the home of many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples as part of an intricate nationhood that reaches across Turtle Island. At this time of truth and reconciliation, we welcome the opportunity to work together towards new understandings and new relationships and ask for guidance in all we do.
May-wish, Councillor. Moving on to item number 2 on the agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interests. I have none before me at this time. If at some point throughout the meeting a member of council feels they have a pecuniary interest, please let us know at that time. And then moving on to item number 3, open forum, which my understanding, Madam Deputy Clerk, we have no one online or wanting to speak to us from outside of this room.
Correct, Your Worship. I have nobody registered today.
All right, thank you. And I'll just ask the members of the audience if there's anyone who would like to come forward and make a comment on this agenda. Seeing nobody, we'll continue to move on. Before we go to item number 4, I'm just going to look to our fire chief. We've had a lot of inquiries with respect to air quality and fire bans specifically. Chief Williams, could you comment on that? Let us know where we're at with that and what we anticipate is coming down the pipe.
Absolutely. Thank you, Your Worship. As you all know, there's many fires burning in Northern Ontario as well as across Canada, and this is beginning to stretch some of the resources of the fire service, as well as it's clearly affecting air quality across the province. We've carefully assessed the fire danger rating in Wasaga Beach, and the process to do that, there's a number of things that we do look at. It's not simply just the amount of rain that we've experienced, in the last few weeks, although that is a factor. Some of the things that we look at is the readiness of our fire protection services, so that includes our equipment as well as our firefighters, the availability of water sources, which includes natural sources of water as well as our municipal water towers, the current and forecasted temperature, relative humidity, and wind, the type and condition of local fuel sources, including grass, brush, and trees, and finally current and past fire activity. At this point in time, Wasaga Beach's fire danger rating remains at high, meaning that it is serious. However, we do not anticipate any extreme fire behavior, such as a forest fire, to occur. However, in light of the air quality concerns that we continue to see, and we now have cancellation of numerous outdoor recreation activities by numerous clubs, we think that it's prudent that we introduce a fire ban today at noon in order to help with some of that air pollution and improve the air quality. So effective today at noon, there will be a complete fire ban in place, which means no outdoor burning and no fireworks until further notice. Residents are allowed to continue to use manufactured barbecues as well as any outdoor gas-fueled appliance. So that could be like a fire table that is run off of propane or natural gas. That is permitted because it can be controlled quite easily, but a typical outdoor bonfire in the backyard is no longer permitted. We are actively updating our social media, our website, and as well all the roadside fire danger signs to notify the public. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Chief. And I just for some confirmation, so that would include fires that are inside a fire burning apparatus that you'd see in many parks now. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep. Any sort of outdoor burning using firewood is now not permitted.
And then the last question I have before I open up to council, what does this mean for the sale of fireworks? Does it affect the ability to sell fireworks?
So in Wasaga Beach, we have a bylaw that does regulate fireworks at all times of the year, and residents are only permitted to set off fireworks on certain days, which is typically long weekends. As well, it does control the sale of fireworks as well. So for this weekend, fireworks are not permitted anyways, so there is no immediate impact. However, should a fire ban be prolonged and impact the next long weekend, then there would be no sale of fireworks and no setting off of fireworks. But we'll worry about that when we get there. Hopefully, we're going to see some rain at the beginning of next week, which hopefully will allow us to lift the fire ban.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions from council? Councillor Belanger?
Yes, thank you, through your worship. To the chief, could you also remind both our residents and potential visitors what the fine would be for not adhering to the fire ban?
I don't have that wording in front of me. However, I believe it's approximately $300 per occurrence. So our open fire bylaw does have a number of rules associated with it, and for each and every rule that's broken, a new charge can be levied. So that $300 can be multiplied several times. And then in addition to that, if the fire department is required to respond and put out the fire due to your negligence, then you're also paying the fee for the fire truck to arrive, which is approximately $500 per hour per truck. So it can get quite costly very quickly. And of course, in addition to that is we may remove your privilege of burning into the future, again, if you are negligent in your activity.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 4, approval of the agenda. I do have a resolution that the contents of the agenda of June 8th, 2023 be approved as circulated. Questions or comments? Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Ego and Councillor Timms, all in favor? That motion carries. Item number 5 is deputations, presentations, petitions, and public meetings. We do have a few deputations on our agenda today, and we'll start with the first one from Ms. Marta Kozak regarding the removal of Hawk Mobile on Cedar Lane Drive in Allenwood Beach. Marta, good morning and welcome. Good morning. I'll just ask you to turn your microphone on there, and the floor is yours.
Thank you for this opportunity to address council about a request that I and 21 neighbors from the east end of Cedar Lane Drive in East Allenwood Beach are making. Our request is to remove honk mobile signs and replace them with no parking signs, thereby making the entire street of Cedar Lane and its courts a no parking area. Historically, Tiny's Woodland Beach that borders Wasaga's East Allenwood Beach has been signed no parking and permit parking, leaving a non-signed Cedar Lane and its East End courts an ideal, secluded, and free all-day parking lot for Woodland. Historically, the beachfront land between Eastdale Drive and Archer Road has had no park services because of the many residents there who have land deeds that extend to the water. Day trippers are typically redirected by these residents westward to the main Allenwood Beach Provincial Park or eastward into Woodland Beach, where some residents there also own property to the water. In 2022, the superintendent of Allenwood Beach Provincial Park wrote the Ontario Surveyor General with a request of a review of the park boundary on its east side. No details are currently available about this review. Honk Mobile provides no services to support it. The nearest toilet is 300 feet west of the Eastdale Drive Provincial Park entrance, and the next nearest toilet is found 3 kilometers away at the Woodland Beach Provincial Park on Tiny Concession Road 2 West. Once COVID hit in 2020, numerous requests were made to the town by our residents to have our area sign no parking, as we became overwhelmed with the traffic, garbage, and lack of sanitation services. From 2021 to 2022, no parking signs started to be erected along one side of Cedar Lane and into its courts, but only in small incremental areas at a time. On October the 14th, 2021, Rachel Ivac from Bylaw presented to Council her East-West End on-street parking report, which was approved without discussion or resident awareness. Nina, George, and Rachel withheld information about our historically unique area. Currently, no other area in Allenwood Beach has honk mobile signs. No elected official or town employee should use their power or authority in a manner that keeps their residents uninformed. No public work employee should have the burden of informing residents of the town's intentions. The majority of Honk Mobile users park between Pine Grove Court and Maple Hill Court, an area of Cedar Lane that is closest to Woodland Beach. This adds an increased stress to our East End community that is already feeling the impact of an influx of residents into the area. Cedar Lane Drive provides a convenient straightaway for traffic between Tiny, the east end of Sunward, and Wasaga. It has bus transit stops and serves as a rest point for its drivers. ATV and motorcycle traffic has increased along our East End community because of Tiny's 2021 bylaw for no ATVs. Resident mailboxes for the beachfront and Cedar Lane areas are located on either street end. Summertime serves as a challenge for local foot and bicycle traffic. Our request matters to us because we care when dirty diapers and garbage are left behind by out-of-towners in front of our seasonal cottage owner properties and in empty lots. We care when we find ourselves cowering toilets, and we remain concerned when visitors leave our area after drinking alcohol all day in Woodland Beach. Our residential neighborhood matters to us. As taxpayers, we don't want it to be an all-day, no-service parking lot for Woodland Beach. So I sent off 2 emails to Mayor Smith on March the 15th and the 27th, and on May 15th, I met with Mayor Smith, Rachel, and Carla. We, 21 residents, and myself are prepared to forward a signed petition and present it to you at the next council meeting, should our request not be accepted. And finally, I'd like to end with a special thank you to Mayor Smith, Sasha, Rose, and Faye for their willingness to listen to our unusual situation as stated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marta. Questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Eagle?
Thank you. Sorry about that. I think my voice might have been loud enough to catch most of it anyway. So yes, I'm wondering why it was ever implemented there and how they expected people to access and what beach they expect the visitors to access. That's one thing. I can confirm also, I also spoke with the park superintendent last year about this issue because I was campaigning and I needed to know for residents throughout town what happens with our provincial parks. And at that time, Park Superintendent John Fisher did, and I have it in writing, that they were going over their major park plans. And they felt that possibly, to the best of my knowledge, that they maybe should have never patrolled the east side of Ellenwood across Chandler's Creek there. So that being said, the park does not patrol that area and has not for at least 2 years. So in my estimation, it is really no man's land. That's what I have to say for council if anyone's wondering further questions on that. So I do see it as a very big issue for the area.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor White?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just kind of picking up on what Councillor Eagle has said here in part of your presentation about private beaches and access. While you were speaking in your presentation, I was looking at all the lot lines down there. If you are parking on Cedar Lane and you want to access the sand and water, is there a public area of beach there, or are you on private? Because most of these are, the homeowner owns the sand. Is that correct up there?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that is correct. In many areas, once you get past Chandler's Creek, many of those homeowners own to the water's edge. And that means usually their deed will say to the high water table, which is dependent on each year and where the water's at. So that creates other issues there.
Yeah, so further to Councillor Ego's point, I don't understand why we would be directing a bunch of people to people's backyards. I think we have enough Long Beach to put beachgoers at. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Any other comments or questions from council? Councillor DeLeo?
Thank you, Marta, for your presentation. I'm going to agree with Councillor Ego. I too, when you gave me a tour down there, it is problematic, extremely, and I'm hoping we can reverse that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Marta, thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate it very much. I do have a resolution here on this deputation that the Joint Committee of the Whole and Council received the deputation from Marta Kozak pertaining to Hawk Mobile parking on Cedar Line Drive for information, and further that the matter be referred back to staff for a review and a report brought back to Council. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor Snell, Councillor White, all in favor? That motion carries. Moving on to item number 5.2. We have another deputation this morning from Pamela Stevens and Claire Chasaw with respect to Cedar Grove Trailer Park. Ladies, please come forward. Good morning and welcome. Just going to ask you to turn the microphone on, and the floor is yours.
Well, good morning, Your Worship, Mayor Smith, and also to Deputy Mayor Snell, all council members and department heads, and everyone in attendance today. I'm Pamela Stevens.
And I'm Claire Chasson.
And we're both full-time residents, homeowners in Cedar Grove Park, and we pay property taxes there. We're introducing this morning some concerns and issues facing the full-time residents of Cedar Grove Park, which is a land lease and mobile home community in Wasaga Beach. The property owner has made an application to the municipality to demolish our residential homes and replace us with seasonal travel trailers. The purpose of this deputation is to provide information to council about the impact such a conversion would mean, not only to the present park tenants, but to the community of Wasaga Beach as a whole.
So the property as stands now, the sites themselves are owned by Ms. Patricia Barnes. The mobile homes are owned by the tenants who lease the land off of her. The Residential Tenancies Act 2006 recognizes mobile homes in a land lease community as permanent structures, not meant to be relocated or moved. Real estate listings for similar mobile homes in Wasaga Beach currently start at $295,000 currently. For almost a year now, we have been unable to sell our mobile homes since the property owner issued the N13 to evict us with the Landlord and Tenant Board. We can't schedule or make necessary repairs, like a new roof, for example. As we await for the LTB's judgment, being in spending limbo creates the added disadvantage of lowering property standards. Pride of ownership is diminished.
So who are the people that live in Cedar Grove? Well, we're residents. We range in age from seniors to families with young children. Claire has 3 young children. Many residents work locally. Children in the park attend local schools, and quite a few of the residents are on fixed incomes. But all of the residents purchase goods and services locally year-round. And by the way, we're about 60 or 65 residents in the park.
We all share a great sense of community support and neighborliness in the park. Pet ownership is allowed. These are our lifestyle advantages of living there currently. The small yards encourage exercise, outdoor activities, example, gardening, walking. We live close to amenities, grocery stores, drugstores, bus stops, the YMCA, libraries, and schools, hospitals. And most importantly, the monthly land lease is affordable.
And I'd just like to point out that Davina Johnson is here with us today, and she looks after about 14 feral cats in the park and has for many, many years worked with a veterinarian and taken great care of those poor cats. So what are the park plans and the potential impact? A conversion proposal to replace full-time residents with seasonal campers from May the 1st to October the 1st, which is only 5 months, would be less likely to support local business. The tax revenue from a seasonal campground is likely to be less than that of a residential area. The outlook for a quiet end of the beach, which the West End has been kind of known for many years, may mean more noise, more congestion with traffic, and increased policing. Expectations of a well-managed new campground are diminished if we compare the management of the existing campground. Currently, the bylaws are not being met, and safety measures are not being taken. Are these policies to continue if a new seasonal campground is made? We don't know.
So the present status, tenants have been under duress and constraints since July 6, 2022, upon receipt of the N13 notice to end tenancy for a no-fault eviction. As a result of the evidentiary process, tenants were privy to the site plan application submitted by Betty Ann Barnes. We found omissions and answers irrelevant to the questions. For example, size of the land in question. We would like to suggest a survey be completed for an accurate assessment.
So in summation, with all due respect, we would like council to consider the implications of the mobile homeowners having to relocate. We are all aware of the existing housing crisis, the limited availability, exorbitant rental costs. There is a great deal of sympathy and support for our situation with local residents. They don't want to see us homeless, nor do we. They are less than keen to have more seasonal occupants of travel trailers who do not have a vested interest in the town and its leadership. The possibility of losing our homes, our jobs, our financial investments, our friends, and our community for a $3,000 compensation is profound.
So our final words. Our purpose today was to put a human face to our cause. We hope we have been successful in presenting information which has caught your interest and attention. In anticipation of that, we are providing a hard copy of this deputation for each member of council. Included in that hard copy is the contact information in case questions come to mind at a later date. We look forward to any feedback the town might offer. If the administration for the town of Wasaga Beach feels it can contribute its expertise in a mediation capacity, please be assured that the mobile home owners would be interested in participating in that. Thank you so much for your time and concern.
Ladies, thank you very much for your very respectful presentation. Truly appreciate it. I'll open the floor to questions or comments from council. Deputy Mayor Snell.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. Thank you for your presentation, ladies. Excuse me, I was aware of this situation, you know, when it came out in the newspaper and whatnot, and my assumption was that they were going to develop the land, was what I was thinking, but to remove permanent residents, to bring in seasonal residents, is shocking to think that how is that even legal? Mm-hmm. And a quick little Google search, they have 160, or they promote 160 available sites. If you have 60 full-time residents, what's wrong with keeping the 60 full-time residents there and continue to rent out the 100 sites seasonally? I don't understand why they would have to.
You know, we're only, council members now, we're only sort of allowed to speculate as to why they want to make these changes to a full-time seasonal park that only operates for the 5 months a year. We think it's possibly because they no longer want to maybe plow our crescents, our little roads, because presently the owner's son comes out and plows the road. Doesn't take very long, under 10 minutes to do our total area. Also, they have to collect garbage every Saturday. And so perhaps those two things are impeding, you know, their desire to continue with their responsibilities in the park, but it's just an educated guess.
Thank you, and to follow up to that, and I can appreciate that, but I think also too, the unique circumstance here is that they engaged with full-time residents who put roots down and made investments, and at this time of the economy, trying to find obtainable housing that is going to be anywhere near what you're paying at this point is going to be a huge challenge.
Right.
And how do you recover that? That would be like a residential developer. You go in and you buy a home, and like Parkbridge, for example, it would be like, you know, Parkbridge coming along and saying, I'm sorry, we're not doing this anymore. We're just bulldozing all these houses. Because you're right, yours probably are not movable.
No.
They won't sustain moving.
No.
So I'm surprised that there's not a legal situation here, in my honest opinion. And I'm very empathetic for
Well, thank you
for
so
your
much.
situation.
Yes, it's a double battle, so to speak. That's not maybe the correct word, but we have to deal with the eviction order that is possibly coming up since they filed an L2 with the Landlord and Tenant Board. So that's one thing that we have to face and deal with, is getting an eviction order. And then also the decision that the township might amend the zoning and allow them to change our RM zoning to CC zoning. So we're kind of facing two issues. It's been quite stressful. Thank you.
I can only imagine how much you must be under stress. So, yeah, you definitely have my
All right.
support. Thank you for coming.
You know, she has 3 children. I can understand her emotional.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Snell. Councillor Timms?
Thank you, Your Worship. I've been following along with this thanks to one of the residents who's been sharing emails with me. And I do have a couple of questions, but first to build on Deputy Mayor Snell, I think that it may not have really come across as much during your presentation, but many of those trailers cannot be moved. So even if you found another place to move to, because of the growth in there and perhaps the life of the homes, a lot of them can't be moved. And I will tell you that I have driven kids home because I have a 14 tomorrow-year-old granddaughter, and I have delivered kids. So yes, there's quite a family community in there. My question is, has something come to the town yet regarding rezoning of that property?
I'll look to our Director of Planning, Trevor.
Through your worship, there's been no applications formally submitted to the municipality. The only applications that we've received is for a pre-consultation application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Timms. Councillor White?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, just a quick comment. I just really wanted to agree with the Deputy Mayor, and thank you very much for bringing your voice and your faces to council so that we can see what's going on. It really helps us when we have to make decisions moving forward, and I appreciate you being here. And we understand, and I definitely understand your stress.
Thank you. It's very heartwarming.
Thank you for hearing us.
Thank you.
All right, Councillor DeLeo?
Thank you for the heartfelt presentation. It's truly saddening. I'm sorry, I want to say a thank you to the woman, I didn't catch her name, for taking care of the feral.
Davina Johnston?
Yes, thank you for taking care of the feral cats. God bless you, thank you.
Yeah. Big job.
Councillor Belanger?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The residents of Cedar Grove have had a number of meetings with the town, and certainly we sympathize with all of the residents there and what you're going through. But I do want to point out that there are laws in the province of Ontario, and there are legal rights of landowners as well, that, you know, as much as we're attempting to do what we can to help, there are some overriding laws, and there are some precedents that we're aware of where similar things have happened. And so I don't know if anyone here has any certainty to the outcome. I think we all certainly agree that the compensation is very little considering what you're potentially faced with. And we know of one case where a substantial amount of money was purchased for one of those homes, I think within 2 years or less. So again, I think, you know, I will continue to do what I can to support your cause. But the reality is that this may be a civil matter where it comes down to the residents going before a magistrate and trying to get a ruling for, you know, either a significant higher level of compensation. But again, I wish I could speak with more certainty, but
Right. If I could just interrupt and speak up about, I mentioned that we have two issues that we face. One is with the Landlord and Tenant Board, where the Barneses have, who is the landlord, has issued an L2, which is for hearings for eviction. The Landlord and Tenant Board is really clear that they need all of the paperwork, permits, and authorizations from the township before they will consider evicting us. So it's kind of like a case where you can't have your cake and eat it too, I guess. So that's how it stands. Both of those things have to happen for this whole proposal to take place.
Go ahead, Councillor Belanger.
Your Worship, just in a follow-up, and, you know, certainly there's been many examples over the years where, you know, council, I believe, has the ability to look at zoning and say that, you know, we want it to maintain as a residential zone, but even at that, the landowner has the right to appeal that and go to you know, a higher decision maker to come up with a final result. And we've certainly seen in the past where sometimes the landowner's wishes are upheld. So again, it's a very challenging situation, and there's no certainty, I believe, to the outcome. But again, personally, I'll continue to try to support in whatever way I can. Thank you.
And that's why we're here, because there is no certainty, and we're trying our best to do what we can.
Thank you, Councillor Belanger. Councillor Ego?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Pamela and Claire, thank you very much for the hours of work that you would have put into this presentation.
Oh,
and
thank you.
it would be all-consuming.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I heard that it is in hard copy for us, that we will have, could we have a copy?
Yes, we have another lady who is going to, she's just moved to New Liskeard, so,
But still owns a home
but
in the
still
park as
isn't,
well.
yeah, she's living a dual life right now. And she will notify her that we completed our deputation today, and then she will send out pretty much what we have here.
Yeah, that'd be
So
wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Back to Councillor Timms.
Thank you, Your Worship. And this question may be for you to address when you speak to this issue. Yesterday, the county released a new proactive homeless prevention strategy. And I wonder if there's an opportunity for the residents to have an audience with the county, or if you know much about the strategy, if there's something within it that could prevent this homeless crisis for the residents of Cedar Grove.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor Snell? No, let's go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just sitting here and thinking, how many of these residents have mortgages? You know, and not that's a
Probably-
question, not that it's a question, just putting it out to the room and for those watching at home of consideration.
I'm going to say that very few have mortgages. Most banks will not loan monies or give you a mortgage for a trailer or a mobile home.
I've put in my life savings to buy this home.
This is the problem.
It's also, even me and my daughter's father purchased the home together in 2012, and I've accepted the home in lieu of child support for her until she's 18 years old. So it's not even just my investment, it's my whole livelihood is put into this, and it was to be a stepping stone for me and my family. You know, I intended on selling in a couple of years, getting what I could to have a down payment on my own land, you know? And the idea of just getting nothing is just really criminal,
devastating.
in my opinion.
I agree. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, ladies, thank you very much.
Did you say young ladies?
I did say young ladies, absolutely. I would say nothing but, Pamela. I cannot begin to imagine the amount of stress that the residents of Cedar Grove have endured for the last year and will possibly endure for the next year, not knowing the fate of your future or that of your children's future. I will say again, we, as Councillor Belanger has mentioned, we have had a few meetings with you folks. I will tell you on behalf of myself, I will do everything I can to help and assist in this manner. I believe that what's happening here is wrong. It's wrong on every single level I can think of, and I understand that as the property owner, you have rights. But we are dealing here with the lives of 65-plus residents and/or families. And there needs to be more rules, more regulations, more laws around this. And so I hope that we can get to an outcome that is going to be somewhat palatable by the residents and the landowner here. But I also hope that this helps change some of the laws and rules around land lease situations. And I will say publicly, like I've said to your group in the past, I think you also owe yourself a duty to reach out to your realtor, to reach out to your lawyer who dealt with this transaction for you, and ask them why it is that so many of you don't have long-term leases. You've invested substantial dollars here. I know that there's one individual who only about a year ago spent well over $200,000 and is now facing not being able to move that mobile home and being offered $3,000. $3,000 for someone's home is despicable. It's unacceptable. To Councillor Tim's point, you know, the county, every municipality is doing, including the province, doing everything we possibly can to help people in need for affordable housing, attainable housing. I do like the councillor's idea that perhaps you reach out to the clerk's department at the county, and I'll be happy to assist you in that, to set up a deputation to bring to the county, because this is a county-wide issue, or has the potential to be, provincially, federally, and make these deputations. Have yourselves heard. Fight, damn it, for what is right. This is not a personal fight against the landowner. This is a fight for people's livelihoods and their rights, and what is right and what is wrong. And so I wish you all the very best. We do have a resolution here that I will read in a minute for council to look at, and we'll move forward. But keep up the fight, keep up the hope. I think it's clear that this council and our staff sympathize with you, and we'll do what we can.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All right, council, we do have a motion, and further that the Joint Committee of the Whole and council receive a deputation from Cedar Grove Park residents for information. Any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor DeLeo and Councillor Ego, all in favor? That motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item number 5.3, presentations, is the OPP Municipal Policing Bureau presentation regarding a contracted service for Wasaga Beach. And Madam Clerk, I understand we're doing this online now, but I do see two of Wasaga's finest here in the audience. So I'm wondering, are we doing kind of both in one and the other, or what's happening?
Thank you, Your Worship. The presenter is online, so Laura can bring that up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. I have Sergeant Lisa Roeder and I believe also Sergeant Rob Griffin online virtually. They'll jump in now to present.
All right, Sergeant and Sergeant, welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. And, thank you for having us this morning. My partner's about a minute out. She will be online in a moment. Just a couple of technical difficulties, so she'll be joining us in a moment. Again, I'm Sergeant Rob Griffin from the Municipal Policing Bureau. We're going to speak today basically about the OPP billing model as well as the Section 10 option for a contract with Wasaga Beach. So if everyone doesn't mind, if we could just go on hold for about, I'd say about 1 minute, 30 seconds, we will get Sergeant Roeder up. She's going to lead the presentation today. So if we could all stand by, that'd be great.
All right, so then why don't we just take a 5-minute
Oh,
break?
there she is. There she is.
All right, you get that?
Perfect.
Boy.
Hello. Oh, sorry, I've got my.
Good morning.
Good morning, Your Worship. Hopefully everyone can see me okay. Is that too bright with the background?
You look great.
Can close. Oh, thank you.
The floor is yours.
I understand, his Staff Sergeant Convoy and his Admin Sergeant made it to the meeting yet?
They have arrived.
Are they in attendance? They have? Okay, wonderful. Again, my apologies. We had a different meeting time for 12, and unfortunately I'm up in Aurelia, so I'm not able to attend in person. However, myself and Sergeant Griffin, as well as Staff Sergeant Convey and his Administrative Sergeant will also be there. So we'll field questions as needed. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here today. I'm just going to get my presentation up. Sorry, Laura, am I able to use my screen to share my presentation?
Yes, if you just share your screen when you have it up there, it will show here to everybody in the chambers.
Okay, great. Sorry, just a moment. Okay, and display. I apologize. I'm just, I had to move to a different location. Share screen. Okay. Does everybody see that? Or do you still see me?
We still see you. If there are any issues, we can also throw it up on our end, and you can just let us know next slide. We could process through it that way.
Oh, no, that's okay. I think I've figured out what, sorry, just a moment. I'm just trying to grab a Zoom. Yes, please. Sorry. I do apologize. I'll be just a moment to get. So I'm just trying to figure out. Okay. I don't see why my, Janet, are you familiar with, how can I get my PowerPoint up on that screen?
We do.
Would you like us to throw it up, Sergeant? We have it on our end if you'd like.
I do. I just added 2 slides this morning that I think will be really beneficial. I'm just not sure why it's not giving me the option to pick my slideshow. Yeah. Sorry, this one? And then select that one. Like.
Yeah, what we're going to do so we can take, so you can relax and find what you need. We're going to take a 5-minute break here, and that'll give you some time to do whatever it is you need to do.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So let's say at 10:02 we'll be back to carry on with this presentation. Thank you, Chris. We'll call this meeting back to order, and looks like our friends are ready to go. So again, welcome, and the floor is yours.
You're muted there, Sergeant.
Okay, sorry about that. I just have to switch. Sorry about that. I had it. Okay, here we go. Thank you so much. Is that better? Can everyone hear me okay?
That's perfect.
Wonderful. So good morning, Your Worship and members of council. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Again, my name is Sergeant Lisa Rotar, and I'm a sergeant with the Municipal Policing Bureau of the OPP. Also online virtually with me is Sergeant Rob Griffin, and in chambers today is Staff Sergeant Kevin Comby and Sergeant Kevin Winterowski. Inspector Guilfoy does send her regrets as she was required to attend a mandatory training and was unable to be there today. Here we go. So this is an overview of what I will speak about. We're going to talk about OPP service delivery, integrated service delivery, annual expenditures, billing model, municipal policing costs for your town, Section 10 agreements versus Section 5.1 policing arrangements, and the Community Safety Policing Act. If you have any questions about the information presented, feel free to ask as we go. I will also take questions at the end. So before we discuss our billing, it's important to understand how the OPP provides policing services to Ontario, where we serve over 14 million people spanning across 1.1 million square kilometers of land and waterways and 330 municipalities on a cost recovery basis. Detachments operate at an integrated service delivery model, which allows for flexibility, blending and sharing of resources to provide policing services to contract and non-contract municipalities, in addition to meeting provincial policing responsibilities. Officers work at multiple locations and municipalities during a shift. And again, this allows for coordinating policing strategies and allows communities to engage and partner with various agencies outside of our boundaries. So with GPS technology, our dispatchers know the location of all logged on units, which ensures a more efficient response by utilizing officers that are geographically closer to a high priority call for service. And the OPP tracks services provided using our daily activity reporting or DAR system, which ensures municipalities don't pay for provincial resources or obligations. This slide provides a breakdown of the cost allocation for all the services the OPP provide, both at the municipal and provincial level. So these figures are based on estimated OPP costs for 2020-2021 for the provincial support services and obligations, and this is calculated by the fiscal calendar year, and the 2023 estimated cost for the municipal policing recoveries as we calculate that by the annual calendar year. Again, this chart shows where money is allocated to and what services the OPP provide. So if we look at our provincial provincial support services and obligations side, 65% makes up our mandated provincial responsibilities, which include areas like traffic safety, investigations, intelligence, and special response teams. Under the municipal policing recovery side, these are costs for municipal policing, which include frontline detachment and staff, support positions that are required to meet service demands. This means the OPP needs to recover $412 million to provide back to the provincial government. And again, if you have any questions, please ask. I only see my slideshow, so I don't see hands going up or any other gestures.
I will let you know if someone has a question.
Okay, great. So what does this mean? On the provincial responsibility side, 65% of the total $1.2 billion budget, or $824 million, is accounted for by the provincial government. These services are provided to all municipalities that the OPP police at a no-cost recovery directly from the municipalities. These include traffic safety, investigations, intelligence, specialized response teams like our Tactical Response Unit, Emergency Response Team, Search and Rescue, Auxiliary Unit, Community Safety, Indigenous Policing, and our unincorporated territories. Again, these are provincial support services and resources provided by the OPP to meet mandatory obligations and to OPP police municipalities at no cost recovery. So now the 33%, or $412 million, is the estimated total cost recovery for providing municipal policing services to all the municipalities that the OPP police. These resources include detachment staff, supervision, frontline constables, civilian support, as well as support positions like our communication operators, prisoner guards, academy, and regional headquarters. We recover the $412 million through the OPP billing model. Again, this diagram shows the development of our model with its deep roots in engagement sessions and consultations with the ministries, agencies, associations, and our municipalities. On the left side, each line represents a municipality and shows how much they were paying in 2014 prior to the model, dollars being the scale from top to bottom. You can see how the gap or disparity has been addressed through the implementation of this model. Again, to address transparency, reports and annual billing statements are customized to show each municipality's specific information as related to their calls for service and billing. Annually, we hold webinars when the statements are distributed, and we'll do presentations and provide explanation at the requested municipalities, just as we are here today. So billing information is also posted on our public website, www.opp.ca, for access. So this is the 2023 estimated cost recovery under the OPP billing model, which shows the breakdown for how $417 million will be recovered from the municipalities. Cost recovery is broken down into three categories: base services, calls for service, and other costs. Base service costs are allocated on a per property basis, being $165.66 for total cost recovery of $199 million. Currently, the OPP police 330 municipalities, 1,202,724 properties. Property counts are updated annually based on the MPACT, or Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, data, and include household, commercial, and industrial properties. Again, this calculation for base service costs is $165.66 per property times the total amount of properties, which comes to $199 million. Calls for service and other costs are both based on individual municipalities' usage level. The 2023 calls for service total cost recovery based on all the municipalities the OPP provides policing services to is $178 million. Other costs for 2023 are estimated at $40 million, and each municipality is billed based on contract arrangements and usage. So for example, overtime, court security, prisoner transportation, accommodation, cleaning, and enhancements as applicable. We will look at page 3 of your annual billing statement, which shows the annual calculations for each of these three costs. And here it is. So the annual billing statement is detailed to show how our base services, which is highlighted in orange, calls for service, which is highlighted in blue, and other direct operating expenses are calculated, and that's in the green. Again, base services costs are allocated on an equal per property basis, and calls for service and other direct operating expenses are allocated on individual usage. So for our base services cost, you'll see at the bottom of the page, the total of $165.66 per property cost is figured by taking the total base service cost of just under $200 million and dividing it or sharing it with all the OPP police properties, again, being 1,202,724 properties. For our calls for service, the $178 million calculation is proportionally allocated by usage for each OPP police municipality. We'll look a little bit further into this on the next slide, but what's important to remember is the calls for service count uses a 4-year average of reconciled calls for services, which is multiplied by the current year average time standard to investigate the call within each service billing working group. And for the other direct operating expenses, again, this $40 million calculation is the sum of all listed expenses. and it's divided between the base services and calls for service accordingly. So again, this is another look at the municipal cost recovery under the billing model, and it shows that base services are allocated across all municipalities equally on a per property basis. Calls for service are allocated to the municipalities based on their usage. And again, calls for service represent reactive policing services. So when a person picks up the phone to report something, the police attend to investigate a break and enter, mischief, assault, missing person, or provide assistance, well-being checks, whatever the call may be. Municipalities, again, are billed for the actual number and types of calls of service they receive. Finally, we have the additional other costs. This includes your overtime, which is charged when it's incurred, our court security for municipalities that have a courthouse, prisoner transportation, accommodation, and cleaning, as well as enhancements. So again, prisoner transportation is charged on a per property basis, and that comes to $1.17 for every municipality, for every property in the because municipalities need prisoner transportation. So it could be to court, jail, or whatever the case may be. Accommodation and cleaning is only charged to municipalities that require an OPP building and for the OPP to clean it. And that's a $4.87 charge per property. For municipalities with Section 10 agreements, enhancements are an option where they need to pay 100% for an additional civilian or officer enhancement position in your municipality that can be used to address a specific need. So for example, running a collision reporting center. These positions for civilians can also be a special constable designation. So the billing model, again, it's provincially focused. Any questions on this slide?
I see no hands at this time.
Okay, thanks. So again, this slide shows our cost recovery trends at the provincial level. Blue bars are all your calls for service, base services, and other costs combined, and are recovered from municipalities yearly. The red bars show the average cost per property from 2014 to 2023. So this year, the cost is $347. So although the recovery costs continue to rise, the cost per property for municipalities remains stable. And that's what this shows with our billing model and how we implement it. So this is your 2023 calls for service billing summary for the town of Wasaga Beach. As you can see, all billable calls for service are classified into 9 separate billing working groups, and each working group has a separate average time standard, which is adjusted annually. The billing working groups are drug possession, drugs, operational 2, other criminal code violation, property crime violations, statutes and acts, traffic and violent criminal code. At the bottom right, you can see the total calls for service at the provincial level, cost recovery being $178 million. Each year is broken down for the 4-year average, and you can see exactly how many calls you had for each category and how much time was spent per category. So your municipality's proportionate share of the provincial total of $178 million is $2.3 million, and this is 1.3016% of the provincial total. Again, between pages 7 to 10, you can view the top calls for service, you can review all the calls for service from your 2023 billing statement. I did provide that in advance. I'm not sure if you had a chance to digest it or look it over, but if you have any questions, again, we're happy to discuss that. And again, just looking at this, if we look at the calls for service data for Wasaga Beach, your highest percentage of the calls for service bill are under your operational calls, which is 0.5647% of the provincial-wide total, being $1,008,479. Violent criminal code is at 0.1928% for a cost of $343,340. And property crime violations at 0.1846% for a cost of $329,708. And lastly, statutes and acts at a percentage of 0.0770%, which is $137,515.
Sergeant Rotar, for this information for the public, could you just give us a bit of a understanding of operational and operational 2? They're obviously by far and away the two busiest or largest parts
Sure.
of this.
So again, what's a little bit challenging, I'm going to say, is when you see those working group titles, for example, operational 2, they're categorized based on the average time standard that it takes to complete an investigation. So it may not necessarily be a criminal offense per se, but if it's done by time, the average time standard to conduct a full investigation. So on your bill, on page 8, yes, page 8 and 9. So for example, calls that you'll see under operational fall under dogs bylaw, domestic disturbance. I'm just picking random ones here. Insecure condition for a building, a lost license plate. Those are some, there's a whole list of them under there. And again, they're categorized based on statistics on how long it takes to complete those investigations. So with operational being 3.8 hours, these are occurrences that take an average time to complete that. Under operational 2, I see, for example, false alarm malfunction call. Again, keep the peace, false alarm call for accidental trip. Does that answer that question?
I think so, yes, thank you.
Yeah, like I said, there's a whole slew of all our UCR codes that we capture. And again, this isn't all of the available codes. You will only see what your municipality has been charged for those calls that were actually attended to in your community. But there are other charges that could other types of investigations that could be completed. And again, we have the full list on our public webpage that you can see, and that changes every year. As legislation changes, laws change, we have to update that accordingly. And further to that, you will only see, again, that 4-year average. So I'm looking at an example on page 8 for lost bicycles. In 2018, you had one occurrence that the officers attended to and investigated, but in 2019, 2020, and 2021, there were no occurrences for that type of call. So come the next bill, unless you had one for 2022, you'll no longer see that type of investigation that was completed because it's now been a 4-year average and it's no longer counted into your total. Okay. Would you like more clarification, or are we good?
I think we're good there, thank you.
Okay, thanks. So this is the cost overview for Wasaga Beach. Again, it shows your average cost per property for each year compared with the provincial average, and it shows that it has decreased over the past 3 years from $372 per property to $360 per property. The OPP average, which over the past 5 years has been $362 to $347 per property respectively. So again, this shows the billing model brings cost stability. So this slide shows how the town of Wasaga Beach compares in terms of policing costs to the other municipalities, which the Huronia West Detachment also incorporates. And you will notice as well that both Clearview Township and Springwater Township are currently under Section 5.1 non-contract arrangement as well, just like Wasaga Beach. So again, if we look at your 2023 annual billing statement, you can see the breakdown for the costs of base services, calls for service, and other costs. In the orange box, I have outlined the base service costs. In the blue box is your calls for service, and in the green are other costs. So Wasaga Beach has been billed for 14,073 properties. When multiplied by your base service costs per property of $165.66, it then comes to $2,331,361. Your calls for service percentage of the provincial total of $178 million, roughly, is 1.3016%, which comes to $2,324,277. The overtime is estimated at $325,217. Prisoner transportation fee is $16,465. And your accommodation and cleaning services are $68,536 for a 2023 estimated cost of $5,065,856. In the purple box is our 2021 year-end adjustment. So this adjustment accounts for the difference between the amount billed based on estimated costs in the annual billing statement and the actual reconciled cost in the year-end summary. The most significant year-end adjustments are resulting from the cost versus actual estimated municipal policing requirements for overtime, contractual enhancements, and court security. And as you see, yours is $177,715 that will have to be, that have been incorporated into this year's billing to be paid. Any questions on this slide?
I see none at this time.
Okay. Again, so now that I've reviewed the 2023 cost of policing, we can look at the differences between Section 10 agreements and Section 5.1 arrangements. So currently, again, Wasaga Beach is policed under a Section 5.1 non-contract arrangement with the OPP. So this is the formal slide from the ministry, but I have simplified it for today's meeting. So we're going to focus again. As you know, Huronia West Detachment operates on an integrated service delivery model and provides policing services to your and surrounding municipalities to provide adequate and effective policing commitments under the current Police Services Act. Police service delivery and cost recovery remains the same, regardless whether your municipality is policed under a Section 10 agreement or under a Section 5.1 non-contract arrangement. When the Community Safety Policing Act comes into force, there will no longer be the option to have a Section 10 or Section 5.1 arrangement or agreement. Currently, under Section 5.1, there is limited eligibility to apply for additional government funding. Any revenue generated to the municipality is credited back annually, and there's no option for enhancement FTE positions. So again, Inspector Guilfoy has indicated, as well as in our previous meeting, there may be interested in considering a Section 10 contract agreement. So by doing this, this option would again give the municipality the option to form a police service board under ministry regulations. You will be responsible for all costs associated to creating and maintaining this police service board. You will be eligible to apply for additional government funding and grants. You'll be eligible to request civilian enhancement FTE positions that would be entirely paid for by the municipality. Currently, the OPP has a moratorium for officer enhancement positions until further notice. You'll have the option to participate in the detachment commander selection process, to monitor the performance of and review your detachment commander's administration of complaints, and receive regular reports. Also, you'll have the opportunity to review mutually agreed upon by law enforcement. The other small change will be your invoice date will be in the middle of the month of service, but again, the billing model will remain the same as what you currently have. Is there any questions on this one? The next slide, I'm going to talk about the actual contract process if you choose to go through and switch to a Section 10.
Carry on, please.
Okay, great. So again, this is to enter a Section 10 contract agreement. A bylaw would be passed based on proposal and terms of a contract for a 3, 4, 5, or 6-year contract. Again, this would be effective until the Community Safety Policing Act comes into effect, which we will talk about on the next slide. So it's just a matter of formality. Again, you would have your discussions, determine if you want to enter the contract and the term. I will draft your agreement. Again, you'll confirm the agreement, pass your bylaw, pass it back, and then we'll end up pushing it through. You'll have to sign again and seal it, and then we'll put it through the Ministry of the Solicitor General for approval. Okay, so as mentioned previously, when this Community Safety Policing Act, or the CSPA, comes into effect, it will technically repeal and replace the current Police Services Act and will eliminate the distinction between the existing Section 10 and Section 5.1 contract agreements. All municipalities will have the option to consider agreements for enhanced or additional services. The Ministry of Solicitor General announced its development of the OPP Detachment Board frameworks in May of 2021. OPP does not determine the size or creation of these boards. Again, the ministry, we recently had heard that the ministry has reached out to the municipalities. If your submission for your detachment board was not sufficient, they have addressed it. So I'm not sure if you have heard back. Can anyone confirm if you are engagement with the ministry about your detachment board composition?
Mr. CAO, anything? Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mayor Smith, I have been in contact with Ms. Sahota at the ministry level, and we have
Great.
discussed the composition, yes.
Okay, wonderful. That's good. Again, if the ministry is responsible for that, and we don't know, we don't have a date currently when the CSK will come into effect. So, and as well, we're not exactly sure how. A question that I often get is once the existing Section 10 and Section 5.1 arrangements and agreements are no longer in effect, how will it look for the 5.1, Section 5.1 municipalities to get enhancement positions or apply for funding? And to be honestly fair, we really don't know at this time. Nothing has been confirmed. So that's kind of where we're sitting at right now with this. Are there any questions for that?
Have they given you any indication on when you can expect those questions to be answered?
Unfortunately, we were told 2024, but again, nothing is confirmed. They did send out a publication, I believe in October, but nothing has been confirmed that we know. And once we do know, it will be communicated immediately. Like, obviously, when we get, we should also receive notification through the ministry. But if we hear anything on our end, I will personally send it to all the municipalities in Central Region, including yours.
Thank you.
No problem. So again, lastly, we do have some really helpful online resources available to the public as well as your municipality on our website. Again, the billing model, if you need a little more clarification, we have wonderful resources there, a few different PowerPoints and presentations, or you can always contact me. I'm happy to help and serve wherever I can. So that's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Sergeant. Questions or comments from Council? Deputy Mayor Snell.
Thank you, Your Worship. Looking at your list of calls for service, do you happen to track, because Wasaga Beach is a bit unique with the provincial park being a significant chunk of our land, do you track beach location calls is my first question. And the second question is, how is the H2OI events and their activities tracked or assigned? Is that under the Traffic Safety Act? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Those are two good questions. So in terms of the beach location charges, yes, there are specific DAR codes that are used when an officer attends an occurrence. They input that data. And again, that helps us determine whether or not it falls under a provincial responsibility. And again, the waterways and highways are a provincial responsibility versus a municipal recovered charge or a call for service that's billed to the municipality. I know at a previous meeting we did discuss that. It has been explored and determined that there are the appropriate DAR codes in place that capture those events to be distinguished between a municipal call for service and a provincial responsibility call. And your second question, sorry, can you please repeat the second question that you had regarding the H2O unsanctioned event?
Yeah, the question was with respect to that, how does that affect our billing and what does it fall under?
Staff Sergeant Comby, do you want me to answer this or would you like to provide? I'm happy to answer it if he's...
He's heading up here to the microphone now.
Is he heading? Okay, because I know they've had numerous discussions and meetings as well.
Just perfect. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for having us. Thank you, Lisa. I'll top up some of it, and then I'll let you complete it. So for the unsanctioned car event that we have here, and we're trying to rid of the beach, we have provincial assets, our ERT teams, our traffic teams are provincially are funded. The overtime that is committed to the events would be coming out of municipal tax-paying dollars. Being a resident who currently I live here, so I have a very good understanding of this. So if we have our aviation, if we have our emergency response teams, if we have our traffic specialist teams, that's not coming out of the pocket of us here. That's coming out of the provincial side of the house. Anything else besides those, Lisa, would be here. Is that correct?
That's correct. So for example, say people, again, the unsanctioned event, it's happening in your municipality. Now, members from that event go downtown and they start smashing a window. That becomes now a mischief charge, right? So that is technically a call for service that is billed to the municipality. Other charges similar to that. So again, we have, as Staff Sergeant explained, we have our provincial assets and specialized teams that will come in at no charge. So that will happen regardless. But anything that happens that's a call for service within your municipality is billed to the municipality.
Follow up, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. For the first part of my question, I'm glad to see that you're tracking the provincial calls in relation to the beach, because obviously that must be a significant volume, I would assume, during the summer months with all of the busy tourists. As far as H2OI, this is a frustrating piece, right? Really, really frustrating. I'm sure just as frustrating for the OPP as well, who are trying to keep the community safe, because I see this as a provincial issue. It's not just Wasaga Beach. We see it going into Bracebridge. We see it going into other communities. And unfortunately, ours was just targeted over and over again, and our taxpayers are having to pay for that. So I really think that this should be a provincial cost. And I don't know where that goes or where that comment goes, but I would be curious to see if there's anybody in your office or anybody who has the opportunity to have those provincial conversations to be able to say, A, what is the provincial strategy? And B, how does the province then pay for this? Because municipalities cannot absorb these types of costs potentially a couple times a year. And just for comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Snell. Councillor Belanger.
Thank you, through your worship, and further to the Deputy Mayor's comments, and I had asked this question some time ago in council, but didn't get a really good answer. So trust me, I'm not a policing expert in any way, but during the H2I rallies, in an attempt not to get too many people congregating in one spot, the OPP often intervened to get them moving. But they're moving to other areas of town, and I'm assuming the chopper or other members of the command team are then issuing calls for service. And I'm wondering are those calls for service billed to the municipality when we're keeping the problem moving through our town, but then as soon as they move to another location, we're doing a call for service to now go there and try to make sure that too many aren't accumulating in the same place. That appeared from an observer to be what was going on throughout a weekend that could have been resulting, maybe for very good reason, but resulting in a lot of calls for service.
Thank you, Councillor. Did anyone want to try and tackle that? Red light. There we go.
There we go. Okay. I can speak to some parts of that. So the events happened since I've been here 3 times in Wasaga Beach specifically. We do get pop-up events, and share for the minutes. We had on last Friday, we do social media scrapes. We have analysts that do that. And there was a pop-up event taking place called Radial Event, and it came out through social media, and our analyst was able to nip that, give us a heads up. This was last Friday about 10 o'clock in the morning. A young fellow from Loretto was the organizer of the event. We were able to reach out to Mom, Dad, and him to shut the event down. It was going to take place at the Pizza on the beachfront and take over the beach. Very similar pop-up to what H2I is. So we were given little time to react to that, but getting the parents who were very supportive of the police and didn't want their 17-year-old being arrested for the event or being the organizer of the event, it was a little closer to home for us. The H2I specifically, the organizers out of Montreal, out of Quebec, makes it more difficult. These pop-up events that took place last summer was essentially that. It wasn't an H2I regulatory event. It was a pop-up, the culture, subculture. It was a lot of local people. Most of the kids were local. Wasaga Beach, Elmville, Clearview Township. They weren't the modified cars. They were pickup trucks and Jeeps and those types of things. So we do try and contain it to really specify. As a policing, as an incident commander, we do try and target it to a certain area. The problem is holding it at an area like Canadian Tire, which was the most devastated from the pop-up event that we were unable to plan for. It created a lot of damage to his property. And having those conversations with Ken Voss, the owner, and explaining that, he was more than happy to have the event contained in his parking lot, as opposed to move it all over the town. When we start moving it all over the town, then we do get the calls for service, which would obviously increase the cost to the municipality and to the taxpayers, because you have a number of different people calling it in. So in that particular event, we were behind the 8 ball. It was not something we could plan for, not something the Barrie City could plan for, not something that Toronto Police could plan for. When we get the information, we rely heavily on our analysts to target and to shut it down, as we did last Friday. So that could have been an event like H2I on Friday had we not got ahead of the ball on that one. So if that helps.
Supplemental, Councillor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to follow up, so then a call for service then has to come from a resident. So if you're dispatching from your helicopter or dispatching from your headquarters on site, the motorhome, then those are internal and not deemed call for service?
I'm not the expert. I'll pass that to Lisa, the expert about the billing of that. I'm not 100%.
So again, it's a little bit gray right now. What we're talking probabilities here. If a citizen calls it in, yes, it's a billable call for service, because again, the police have to attend, given the type of call that it is that comes in, the police will attend to do their service. If it's coming from within the mobile command team, or like you said, from the plane, they observe an offense happening that needs officers to attend, just because it gets dispatched by the chopper or the mobile community response vehicle or station, it still has to be investigated. Now, if it's just calling to deploy officers, hey, we're going to put extra, 12 officers down at the end of the street, that's not a call for service, right? They're strategically deploying, we're strategically aligning our resources. But if it's a, response is required to deal with a call that falls under one of the operational service working groups, then yes, it will turn into, and again, location is also paramount where it happened. That could potentially be a call for service.
All right, thank you.
That's billed.
Good, Councillor. Councillor Ego?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, so similar, but not to do with the car rallies. This is, if there should be an incident on the sand on one of the beaches, any one of our beaches, and the MECPA are not able to control it, and they call for assistance, does that go to the province or to the municipality?
Again, that's a great question. It does start, again, by location, and you're right, technically, if it does start on the beach, if you have a whole group of people, you're doing crowd control on the beach, it is a provincial obligation, a responsibility. So if it was all on the beach and it happened on the beach, it's going to be a provincial call for service, not billed to the municipality.
Hey, thank you for that. Now, this is a two-part one and a little bit tricky, but it certainly involves, Eastdale Drive is a street, and a portion of it is a sand road. So if there should be an incident on the sand road, so when you enter Eastdale onto the sand road, there's a huge sign saying it's a provincial park. So if there should be an incident, and for instance, I had seen a domestic there before, so if the MECP were called again to that, and then they had to reach out to the OPP, where are we on the billing again? Same thing, or?
I'm not familiar with the location, but again, it's going to have to call. What could also happen too is, say the occurrence starts, like you mentioned, at the sand portion of the road. However, the complication moves up the street and it's now into town and it's now ensuing on the paved portion, which is going to be within the municipality. Sometimes I'm not sure how, and depends who calls it in and where it's called in. Again, this is really case by case specific, but if it's on the provincial responsibility being the beach, that's where the call should be coded to. If that's where it sees it's happened there, the caller calls it in from there versus on the street. But sometimes, like you said, it could start in one location, but it doesn't get called in until it's in the municipality per se, just given the dynamics of where you are. So it's, it's kind of hard to be asking victims. So were you, did it happen on the beach or did it happen in the city, right? Like our focus is to victim-centered care and trauma-informed approach. Not to be, I hope that answers. Again, it is quite technical, if you will, in a case-by-case situation.
Yes, thank you. It is a unique situation, so I think it probably would be a case-by-case and that, but it's interesting. Thank you. Thanks.
Sure.
Thank you, Councillor Ego. Deputy Mayor Snell.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. I'm not sure if you would be able to answer this question. Looking at the grand total of the calls for service that are billed to the municipality, this year is 5,688. Do you know by chance what the provincial calls for services were in Wasaga Beach? Just as a comparison, please.
Yes. So I'm just looking at, so basically, are you looking for a specific number of calls for service? Is that the question?
Yeah, I'm just really curious about the ratio between the two. Thank you.
Yes, because what we do, again, you have to look at the average time standard. So that is provided on the total. We have, basically they've added under the 2023, on your bill, we see the total, the provincial totals are provided in comparison. So total, the average, on page 5, here, actually, I'll pull it up again, just a moment. It does show the totals. I'm just going to try to get it up for you again. Sorry to share first. Sorry, just a moment here. So where you see on here the average time standard next to the total waited time. Sorry, we just show the total calculation is at the bottom for the provincial totals. So you'll see, and there's an additional note on that. So we show the total breakdown being the total amount of the $178 million. I will be able to get that number for you. I'm just trying to see. Yeah. I'm sorry, we show the cost total on here. but not the actual number of calls, because again, your bill doesn't capture all of the available calls for service. It doesn't show, again, I'd have to get you the number specifically, which it is available on our website with all the UCR codes, so I can provide that information. Again, the challenge being your bill only captures the calls for service that were attended to within your municipality, not all the available different types of calls. And again, they're categorized by the working service group categories.
But when we look at these reports, Sergeant, that you're presenting today, these are Wasaga Beach specific, correct? Not Huronia West?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
No, that's to your municipality. Each municipality gets their own bill.
So it would be advantageous, I think, as we go forward, whether it be with a 5.1 or a Section 10, that we can see what those calls were specifically and the amount of time on each call, so we can determine where, especially if we go to a contract where we would like to see perhaps enhancements in time spent to reduce that. All right, you're good, Deputy Mayor Snell. Councillor Belanger?
Yes, thank you, through your worship. Just to give you an example so that I can maybe understand how the contract would be an enhancement for our community. So we had a period of time several years ago when we were getting a monthly report. The detachment commander was attending our monthly council meeting or committee of the whole meeting. Sorry, my apologies, coordinated committee meeting. But we had a period of time where speeding tickets dropped by 84%. And we certainly knew that the amount of speeding in our community had not dropped to that level. So when we brought it up, they had indicated that because of resources being required elsewhere in the province, that a lot of the OPP were deployed in different areas that were experiencing traffic concerns or speeding. So in that case, under a contract, it was indicated that we would be able to dedicate those resources more consistently within Wasaga Beach, but speeding and that kind of traffic monitoring or enforcement is generally not a call for service. So I'm trying to understand the benefits of a contract versus potentially increased cost of a contract. We've been told recently that due to changes that a contract doesn't add as much cost as it once did, but potentially would give us more consistent coverage in those areas that I guess the police board that we would establish would set the priorities for. Is that an accurate statement, I guess?
Not entirely, no, unfortunately. So your billing will remain the same. We apply the same model, whether it be a call for service that could be generated through a traffic stop or through a traffic investigation or not. So your billing remains the same. Now, the advantage of a Section 10 contract agreement is if your community decides to have additional or specific, for example, a school liaison officer. That's something that a municipality felt very strongly about. They wanted to have the police in their schools because that is above and beyond adequate and effective policing. There's no legislation that mandates police to be in the schools. If it's a call for service, yes, the police will be in the schools. So again, right now though, there is a moratorium on officers. We can offer special constable positions that can do a range of duties. That's a civilian position as well. I'll give you an example here or there's other municipalities that are using civilian positions to establish collision reporting centers. They have a lot of traffic collisions, motor vehicle collisions, that's a call for service. An officer has to go and attend. They determined that it was more cost effective to establish a collision reporting center and have it staffed by civilians with specific hours. Of course, when the officers aren't working, when the collision reporting center isn't working during those hours, the officer will attend and do it. And that was a cost-saving measure that they determined to be more effective, and that's what they wanted to help, reduce their costs in their community. Again, coming with that is you have to see whether or not the detachment the facility can facilitate a collision reporting center as is, or would the community have to expand and provide one? Because again, that's above and beyond adequate and effective policing. So in terms of, you had also mentioned something that wasn't accurate, that once you have a contract, you get to designate operations. You get to have engaged conversations, and again, it's up to the detachment commander to allocate resources and provide services, because still adequate and effective policing has to be met. However, you will have different reporting, but to my knowledge, I do believe Inspector Guilfoy does attend your community policing advisory committee meetings, and reports are provided. But again, it's a different dynamic where, again, you do have more established communications. And I mean, the detachment commanders always wants to hear from the municipalities, right, and take into consideration for operational deployment. But it's not a given automatic that the police service board will say, we're going to do this. If it's feasible, or again, if they're willing to pay for an enhancement position, that's something that can be targeted, that's above and beyond adequate and effective policing. And again, just to confirm, your billing will not change. But if you assume additional positions, like for, again, enhancement contract positions, being civilian or special constable at this time, that would be available to you. That would be the municipality's responsibility to pay for that. But what I will add too with that is any calls for service that are dealt with through those enhancement positions are not double billed. Those get removed from your bill. So because you're paying for the enhancement, those positions that deal with those calls for service, you don't get billed on that. Does that help?
Thank you. Other questions or comments from council? Councillor Timms?
A comment really, or perhaps it is a question, Your Worship. I'm unaware that we have been having meetings of a police advisory committee. Is that correct?
So it used to be back in the day that the detachment commander and or the community policing officer would come monthly to council. Now the way it is that every quarter, Huronia West detachment commander and often the operations manager, so Staff Sergeant Convoy will come and meet with the mayors and CAOs of all three of the communities, so Springwater, Clearview, and Wasaga Beach, and we'll meet at one of our communities, and we'll have that quarterly meeting for an update from them. Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? I do have a couple then that I'll get started with. First of all, let me give a shout out to one of our local businesses, Mr. Ken Voss. Again, it's interesting to hear Staff Sergeant Convoy indicate that Mr. Voss, in the best interest of his community that he does business in, was willing to sacrifice his parking lot, his business, to make sure that these pop-up car rallies were at least somewhat contained, and of course he on his own faced the consequences of that and the damage that he had to repair. But it shows great corporate citizenship, and we appreciate that. The other thing to note, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Staff Sergeant Convoy, is that, or Convy, sorry, that these incidents, especially the last one last year, which was the worst one yet, was actually a pop-up. It wasn't the H2OI organization, and to your point, it was a lot of local kids and pickup trucks and so on and so forth. So it's not just necessarily these organizations, although I think they're the catalyst for this starting and happening, and it's important to note that Barrie, I think, has now seen this 2 or 3 times in the last couple of months. And so what the CAO and myself have been working on is working with other municipalities that are facing this. We'll be reaching out to Barrie as well, and that we do a concerted effort at one of our conferences. So AMO is the next one in London where several of the mayors will meet, hopefully with the Attorney General and any other public safety minister as well, to put forth the concern that this is a provincial issue. These people are often traveling across provincial boundaries, but certainly across all over Ontario to get here. And to Deputy Mayor Snell's point, municipalities cannot afford and should not be held to have to support and pay for these issues, and that it needs to be a concerted effort by the province. So we'll continue to take that to Queen's Park whenever we can. I also have some concerns that I have mentioned before, and although I know that there are some, I think you referred to them as DAR codes, which is the code, I guess, an officer assigns to a call when they arrive. With respect to the provincial park within Wasaga Beach, we know that the provincial park is about 26% of our land mass, but certainly the main or all of our beachfront sand where people come to enjoy and bring their families. We can say, I think, pretty safely that a lot of our issues initiate on the sand on the beach, and then of course by the time the police are called, it's now off the sand and in a parking lot or wherever. And I do have a lot of concern, and have for several years, that perhaps, and this is not at the fault of the officers here walking the beat or on the street, but that there needs to be some real clear and concise direction for all officers to ensure that they are asking those questions where this initiated, because I have a strong suspicion that the municipal taxpayer here in Wasaga Beach is paying hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars annually for an expense that probably should be assigned to the province. So I understand not an easy fix, but something that we need to be cognizant of and working towards. I want to thank you folks for coming out and giving us this presentation. We do have a resolution here for staff to do a report and come back to council so we can make some more informed decisions. But before I let you go, I would just ask if there's any recommendation from the OPP to the municipality and council as to what you suggest we should do. I know at one time going to a Section 10 contract was considerably more expensive for municipalities, and now that there's really no difference in cost other than any enhancements we want. But with the new legislation coming down the pipe, and it's government, so it's kind of hurry up and wait. It's what we do at all levels of government. So we're not sure. We're thinking 24, but we also thought, I think, back in 21 that this might be coming. So what I'd hate to do is to go through a whole process, make a lot of change, form a new board, which will ensue some spending, and then to hear in 6 months that, no, that doesn't matter anymore because here's the new legislation and the rules around this coming into place. So I just look to you for any recommendations or your thoughts, please, and thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Unfortunately, we can only provide the information. We're not in a position to strongly recommend or not recommend. Municipalities do have it. I do suggest speaking with, I can provide you a list of other municipalities that are under Section 10, and that might give you further guidance or discussion, which may lead you to come to a decision to enter a Section 10. To me, again, we've outlined on that chart and in the presentation what the differences are. I'm going to highlight for you again, I believe additional opportunity for government grants could be of additional advantage, as well as the enhancement positions. If that's something that, again, your community, your municipality determines that there is a specific need that you want to address, that is an avenue to obtain that or to pursue that. Currently under Section 5.1, each municipality under Section 5.1 is more limited. Again, I'm happy to provide you with resources or with other municipalities under Section 10 where that might, comparable size, perhaps on the water, give you more guidance to have fulsome discussions.
Thank you very much. And I would ask if you could do that, but also any municipalities that would be similar to Wasaga Beach who perhaps were under a 5.1 and went to a Section 10? Because that would be interesting conversation for us to have to see the difference that they're seeing, good, bad, or indifferent, in making that move. So
I don't know of any recently that have switched over, but again, I will look into it and I'll contact the ministry as well, because the ministry is asking. I have given them some indication that there are a few municipalities that are considering going to Section 10 in light of the CSBA still moving forward. So perhaps there may be some additional dialogue from the ministry that can also help shed some beneficial information.
thank you very much. And again, you mentioned that there's quite often grants available then to municipalities that are on a Section 10 with enhancements for things such as white ride programs and whatnot, which we can certainly use more of in Wasaga Beach. So I'll just point out that, again, our staff here do a great job when it comes to obtaining funds from grants, and so it'd be a good one for Carol to work on. All right, well, thank you very much for your presentation. We truly appreciate it. And gentlemen, thank you for being here as well. Stay safe out there, and we'll talk soon, I'm sure.
Thank you again, and I do apologize for not being there in person, but I look forward to coming to your municipality soon. And as needed, anytime, please reach out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us, everyone.
Thank you. All right, Council, we do have a resolution. The Joint Committee of the Whole of Council received a presentation from the Ontario Provincial Police pertaining to the OPP, Municipal Policing Bureau, for information. I'm going to look to Madam Clerk. I think we probably want to have a report or something brought back on this. Did you want to expand on that?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to touch back on the Police Services Board prior to putting the motion on the floor. So with the size of the municipality that we do have, we would be looking at a 3-member board. However, the Police Services Act does allow for council by resolution to switch to a 5-member board, so if it so desire. With the seeking a contract through the OPP, the Police Services Board would have to be established prior to executing any agreements with that force. So the proposed motion from staff, that Joint Committee of the Whole and Council receive the presentation from Ontario Provincial Police, that Council directs staff to explore a contract with the Ontario Provincial Police for policing services in the town of Wasaga Beach, and that Council directs staff to bring a report back on establishing a Police Services Board for Council consideration.
All right, I just wondered, do we want to have anything in there, or staff understands that we want to see some costing and dollars in that as well? I think that's pretty clear. All right, questions or comments from members of council? Deputy Mayor Snell?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, most definitely to your point, I'd also like to see a comparison of apples to apples. This model, benefits a SWOT analysis, this model SWOT analysis, just to really understand the full picture, please.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Belanger, seconded by Councillor Timms. All in favor? Motion carries. All right, moving on to item number 6, Government Relations. 6.1, Communications Department Update. Do we have a Communications Department update today? We do not. All right. Moving on to item number 7, the consent list and the Committee of the Whole, Community Services, and I'll turn it over to Councillor DeLeo. Councillor?
Thank you, Mayor Smith. I will now review the Community Services Business Unit of Committee of the Whole. Resolved that all items listed below will be approved by one resolution. There will be no separate discussions of these items unless a council member requests it, in which case the item will be removed from the consent resolution and considered immediately following adoption of the remaining consent agenda items. I am not aware of any items that have been pulled from the consent agenda at this time. Now, would anyone like to make a comment on an item prior to the consent recommendation? Deputy Mayor Snell.
Thank you, Councillor DeLeo. I just wanted to make a comment on 7.1.2 around the Lions lease agreement. That one, now the public reading it might question why a $10 lease, annual lease, but I think it goes without saying the tremendous work that the Lions does to give back to our community, and so I'm really happy to see that agreement and arrangement is continuing on. And I also wanted to just make a comment about 7.3.3 around 21 Poplar Glen. Sorry, different section. Sorry, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Now I'm going to pass the consent recommendation. Resolved that the community services, absolutely, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to elaborate. I think it's important on the Deputy Mayor's point with respect to the Lions Club and their rent. It's extremely important for people to understand that the Lions Club does do a tremendous amount of work and gives back. I would think about 95% of all funds they raise stay here in our community. Unlike some others and different organizations. And the other thing is that it was the Wasaga Beach Lions Club over the years that have done some pretty spectacular things. I think one is they purchased our very first ambulance for the town of Wasaga Beach back in the 70s. And then the medical clinic that is now the youth center, that building and the garage in behind it was also built and paid for by the Lions Club and donated to the town of Wasaga Beach. So that's why they're where they're at today, and that's why they've had this deal for some time. And it's a deserving club. They do a lot of great work, and it's important that people understand that, so is that they understand why it's $10 a year. Thank you.
Councillor Timms?
Thank you, Councillor DeLeo. I do want to thank Chris for his very comprehensive report. I must say that probably the most asked question that comes to me is what are we doing with that old arena property? So you've certainly included lots of information to help me answer that question when it's posed to me. Thank you.
Any other question or comments? No? Okay, I will now pass the consent recommendation. Resolved that the Community Services section of Committee of the Whole hereby received the June 8th, 2023 consent list item 7.1 and that all the recommendations contained therein be adopted, excluding agenda items pulled from the motion and voted on separately. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Timms, seconded by Mayor Smith. This concludes, all in favor? Passed unanimously. This concludes the Community Services Business Unit of Committee of the Whole. I am aware that there are no public works items. Therefore, I will pass the floor to Councillor Belanger for Development Services.
Thank you, Councillor DeLeo. There are no pulled items for the Development Service section. However, there is one comment requested from Deputy Mayor Snell for 7.3.3. And before I turn the floor, is there any other comments? Seeing none, I'll turn the floor to Deputy Mayor Snell.
Thank you, Councillor Belanger. I just wanted to make a comment about 21 Poplar Glen. We know that Council heard from the residents in that area that were concerned about the multifamily coming into the neighborhood. And while I believe we're all empathetic, nobody likes to see change. This is change, and Wasaga Beach, with the focus of the downtown development and wanting to get some different uses in there, this is one that I will definitely am in support of. Thank you.
Seeing no further comments, I'll read the consent recommendation. Resolved that the Development Service section of Committee of the Whole hereby received the June 8th, 2023 consent list, item 7.3, and that all recommendations contained therein be adopted. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor White and Councillor Eagle, all those in favor? And that passes unanimously. I'll now pass the floor to Deputy Mayor Snell.
Thank you, Councillor Belanger. Moving on to general government. We're going to pull 7.4.2 and looking for support on that. First of all, I'll ask, are there any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll read the motion that the Joint Committee of the Whole and Council receives the following correspondence for information and letters of support. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor DeLeo, Councillor White, all those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you. Seeing that no other items are pulled, I'll now read the consent recommendation. Resolved that the General Government section of Committee of the Whole hereby receive the June 8th, 2023 consent list item 7.4 and all the recommendations contained therein be adopted, excluding agenda items pulled from the motion and voted on separately. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor DeLeo, Councillor White, all those in favor? Thank you, and that carries unanimously. And I'll now pass the chair back to Mayor Smith.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Snell. We're now going to move into open council, and I guess we're moving along here pretty quick. It's close to noon. I think we'll maybe skip the break. So do we have a something prepared, Madam Clerk, to waive that, the break?
Yes, Your Worship. Let me just get a motion.
Unless, is there a member of council that needs a break? We're probably 10 minutes away from finishing here, so. Oh, okay.
Proposed motion that the Joint Committee of the Whole and Council waive Section 4.04B of the procedural bylaw and that the Committee of Whole session immediately move into council to receive a report on the proceedings of the Committee of the Whole.
Thank you. You've heard the question. Can I have a move and a seconder, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor Snell, seconded by Councillor Eagle. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you, Madam Clerk. So we move on to rise recommendation resolved that the Committee of the Whole session rise and move into council session to receive the report on the proceedings of the Committee of the Whole session. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor DeLeo and Councillor Timms, all in favor? That carries. Moving on to item number 9, council session consideration and adoptions of Committee of the Whole recommendations. At 9.1, it is resolved that the recommendations of the Committee of the Whole session of the meeting of the June 8th, 2023 be adopted as resolutions of council. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor White, Councillor Timms, all in favor? Carries unanimously. Item number 10 is the consent list. 10.1 resolved that the Council of the Joint Committee of the Whole and Council hereby receive the June 8th, 2023 consent list items 10 and that all the recommendations contained therein be adopted, excluding agenda items pulled from the motion and voted on separately, which we have none. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Ego, Councillor Belanger, all in favor? Motion carries as well. 10.1, adoption of minutes. We have nothing there, and then moving on to 11, council requested staff reports. Councillor Timms, you want to speak to this?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to request a staff report to consider the opportunity of merging economic development initiatives into the Advisory Committee for Tourism, since there are many synergies, I believe, and if staff could bring back a report to council advising of a new terms of reference. Thank you.
All right, did the clerk or deputy clerk want to speak to that?
Thank you, Your Worship. We can definitely, staff can prepare a report and revise terms of reference to include economic development initiatives within the mandate of that committee.
Thank you very much. All right, if there's nothing else, moving on to item number 12. Oh, sorry, Councillor Timms?
A question, please, Your Worship. Do we need a motion?
Yes, through you, Your Worship, we would require a motion for the staff report.
All right, I do not have one before me. Do you want to read a motion, or?
I could propose a motion.
All right, thank you.
That staff be directed to bring back a report on a blended terms of reference for the Tourism Committee to include economic development initiatives within the mandate.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Moved by Councillor Timms, seconded by Councillor White. All in favor? That motion also carries unanimously. All right, thank you. Moving on to item number 12, notice of motion, we have none. And item 13, closed session, we have none. Item 14 is a confirmatory bylaw. Resolved that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Wasaga Beach at its regular meeting held Thursday, June 8th, 2023, be received and to be deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time, passed in number 2023-69. Questions or comments? Seeing none. Mover and a seconder, Councillor DeLeo and Councillor Eagle. All in favor? That motion carries unanimously, and this meeting is adjourned.